Welcome to my band.
Tell us a Rafi joke.
What song is it, Fitzy?
It's for the Evers.
Okay, this is for the Evers.
Whoa! Jim, stop, guys. You know what?
Cops.
You guys noticed, Rafi's been humming along. Maybe you get up stage and hum a bit more, sir?
Rafi is welcome on our stage anytime he wants, man.
Anytime, man.
Good story, brah.
Raph, seriously? Raph. Focus. Raph. Raph. You're not Clint. You can join us anytime.
Those are the rules, are they?
Check. No, Raph's good.
Fucking way she goes.
Sorry?
It's a fucking way she goes. Sometimes she goes. Sometimes she don't go. It's the fucking way she goes, boys.
Science. You learned to reject. Learn how to reject red flags. Don't do this. No.
She struck off a post, kissed my lips in the doorway. Got my drink and I'm her favorite thing. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, this is one of our altar boys here at the ministry. His name is Little Timmy, and he wants to introduce the next song.
This next song is about the time when I was doing real bad in my life, and I needed the Lord.
Needed the Lord!
And so the Lord, He went through Father Ted here. Father Ted brought me to his office after church, and he laid his hands all over me. And Jesus touched me. Jesus touched me.
I'm a no good heartbreaker. I'm a liar. And I'm a cheat. I only got one life to live. I'm not no other. My mama taught me how to land on my feet. I have this way of finding trouble. It's never far. Wherever I go, take one step after another. You gotta move like a rolling stone. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. Well, I woke up this morning with the devil knocking on my door. Well, he came without warning with the deal. You know, I just couldn't ignore. I do believe, my pretty lady, that it's time for me to move along. Take one step after another. You gotta move like a rolling stone. Hey! You gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah! Hey! You gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah!
everybody doing today? I am doing super well. Which is actually just a balls out lie. I've had like the longest, most annoying couple of weeks at work for all of living history. But you know what? It's I decided I needed to stream today, so that's what we're gonna do. And I was trying to figuring out, you know, what did I want to talk about? I had a whole bunch of different ideas. For some reason, my page just disappeared on me, but that's fine-ish. Google, there we go. All right, cool. It's back. That's interesting. I don't know what the hell just happened there, but Google Docs just was a pain. Anyways, I was trying to think of what I would want to talk about, and then I saw a fantastic video about the Nabisco strike that's going on, and I realized that I had not heard of the Nabisco strike that's going on because I live under a rock, and it would be a good thing to talk about. So that's what we're gonna do. I have no real serious game plan in terms of how I want to approach this. I've done a little bit of smallish digging. We'll figure it out as we go. Worst case scenario, you'll all leave and I will be alone, and it will be awful. But that won't happen. It'll be good. We're good. I see that the chat's working. I see I've got Sugar's in the chat. Hello, Sugar. Why are you just a regular user and not a mod? I should make you a mod. Although, with the brand new Doodle Hooper, I'm not all the way sure how to do that. I think I just did. Or possibly I banned you. We'll find out. And clicking on things. Yes, Sugar, you're now a mod. You have the power and the glory. And I see above it, or Buvet, or however you say that. Good to see you. Hopefully this will be a fun time for all of us. So without further ado, let's hop on over to my browser window. I got an article from the Daily Coast or whatever it is. I never know, but it goes into a lot more detail about the strike than a lot of the stuff I had seen on the MSM or mainstream media. So I kind of like this, and we'll go through. I'm not going to read the whole thing or anything, but we'll look at some of the details. So Nabisco workers across the country, apparently it's in 5 states, are on strike after the company decides to spend profits on stock buybacks. Now that's different than the NBC message that you'll see, and that's the NBC and all the other places are like, oh yeah, the workers in 5 states have decided to go on strike. No idea why. But spending profits on stock buybacks, that's a thing. So let's dig in a little bit. While record numbers of families struggled through lockdowns and steep unemployment, the wealthiest individuals and companies have enjoyed record profits during the global coronavirus pandemic, which I personally think is entirely fucking gross, but that's that's the world we live in. One such example is Nabisco's parent company, Mondelez International. Fortune says that Mondelez International pulls in more than $3.5 billion in profits every year. The Guardian reports that in the second quarter of this year, Mondelez reported more than $5.6 billion in profits and spent $1.5 billion on stock buybacks in the first half of 2021. So their normal profits are $3.5 billion, which, it's not bad. They're doing okay. They're keeping the lights on. But then, they have the COVID year where everyone's stuck at home eating Nabisco products. And, they're reaping some benefits. $5.6 billion in profits in the first 2 quarters. I don't know if that's just for the second quarter. I would assume it's for the first and second put together. But either way, that's a fuck ton of money. And then they spent $1.5 billion of it to buy back stock, which is a great way to falsely make it look like your stock has more value than it does. It's all about shareholder value. The median annual... Belgian businessman Dirk van Poot made just under $17 million as CEO of the confectionery, food, beverage, and snack company. the median annual pay for a Mondelez International employee, just 31 grand. So that's I'm not a doctor of math, but I will say that feels, mind you, feels very one-sided. It seems like Dirk Van de Poot is kind of making the lots of money, and the average Mondelez employee is making the not so lots of money. So that's not at all surprising. It's just sort of, capitalism in a nutshell, but a little bit disgusting. I'm not opposed to the idea of businessmen who are CEOs making large sums of money. The reality is, as long as we live in the capitalism, that's what's going to happen. Capitalists, if you are running a CEO, or if you are running a company as large as Nabisco, you probably, have a great deal of experience and stuff, and presumably are good at your job, and $17 million is, that's some money to compensate. I think $17 million is an outlandish sum of money to compensate, but who am I to judge? I'm just a socialist. But when you see 17 million for one person and 31,000 for the rest, it doesn't feel very, very kind. So, at the beginning of August, around 200 Nabisco Bakery union workers in Portland staged a walkout. 3 weeks into the strike, union workers have joined them in Colorado, Virginia, and Chicago, Illinois. The latter is where Mondelez International is headquartered. The striking workers are represented by the bakery, confectionery, tobacco workers, and grain millers. I love the way unions work. It's always like just random stuff sort of crammed together. But, good. I'm glad. It's good that we have unions, and it's good that they, do things like this. But yeah, bakery, confectionery, tobacco, and grain millers. So there's some, synergies or something. I don't know. Cameron Taylor, a business agent for Local 354, told Oregon Live that the strike results from workers' dissatisfaction with ongoing contract negotiations with the company. This company made record profits throughout the pandemic, and then they came to the table and they want concessions. It's absolutely a slap in the face. In total, the strike is reportedly representing more than 1,000 Nabisco workers across the country. The contract being negotiated would affect all 3 plants where workers are striking. According to the union, they've been conceding things to Mondelez International for years now, and after these record-breaking profits, the company asking for more concessions is unacceptable. One example, cited by Portland's union reps, is how employees were required to work 6 and 7 days a week during the pandemic to make those record-breaking profits. The company's offer? Oh, shit, hit page down instead of scroll down. The company's new proposal would require bakers on high-demand lines to work a compressed work schedule of 3 to 4 12-hour shifts a week without overtime pay, would eliminate automatic premium pay for weekend shifts, and would include a healthcare policy for new hires with a deductible and higher premiums. The current healthcare policy doesn't have a deductible. So this is what they're being offered, is basically right now they're working like 6 or 7 shifts a week, and from what I understand, it's the 12-hour shift thing is not uncommon. So you're working a ridiculous sum of hours, but you are compensated for those with hourly pay plus your overtime, and if they have a special rate for people who are working on weekends, premium pay for weekend shifts, as they call it. They want to get rid of the premium pay for weekend shifts. They want to cut down on the work schedule, which I'm not opposed to, except changing it to 3 to 4 12-hour shifts a week without overtime pay. If you're working 3 12-hour shifts, 36 hours, okay, no overtime pay. I personally think anything over 8 hours, you should be getting overtime pay. But, one could argue that you're working 36 hours in a week. That's not really overtime. It's, I don't see it that way, but others could. I'll give them that. But when you hit 4 days of 12 hours, it's 48 hours. And now you're over the 40-hour work week. The 40-hour work week comes from us wanting to have a life and saying, like, you can have 8 hours of my life every day, and I get to have 8 hours to sleep. And then there's that other 8 hours, which should be fucking mine to live the life that I want to live. So that's only fairsies. But apparently Mondelez doesn't agree. Now, you may be asking yourself, who in the greasy green fuck is Mondelez? Or however that's said, I don't know. It's I'm assuming it's Dutch based on the CEO being what was his name? Dirk van der Poot or Van de Poot. So presumably Dutch, but essentially Kraft Foods used to be the parent company of Nabisco, and Kraft got so big that they were told, hey, you should not be huge anymore. And so they sold off Nabisco, and therefore are we now. But that's the employee's perspective, right? So eliminating automatic premium for weekend shifts, 3 to 4 12-hour shifts a week without overtime. And I didn't touch on this one. The healthcare policy for new hires with a deductible and higher premiums. Current healthcare policy doesn't have a deductible. So right now they actually presumably have a fairly decent healthcare plan. And what they want to do is whenever they hire somebody, they want to give them the new plan. And the new plan will have a deductible. Deductible, I'm sure everybody knows, but a deductible is where you pay for services, whether it's whole or in part or whatever. Usually it's a smaller chunk that you pay up front, and then you are compensated, or in some cases not compensated, depending on the particulars. But it's less of a good deal than the one that they currently have. So the company is basically saying we want to limit your hours, which is good, but we also want to make sure we're not paying you overtime, which is bad. We want to make sure you don't get special pay for working weekends, which is bad, and we want to fuck over all new hires so that we can slowly scale people out of the good healthcare program. So in general, this is not a very good deal. According to Mondelez International, their offer is a concession on their part, as they've withdrawn their previously introduced proposal that would have allowed the use of temporary employees. This is how you break your union, is you say, hey, yeah, I get it, man. You guys, you're the union, you're cool. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring on some people, some good people for temporary jobs. And then you just hire temps and phase out all your union people, and you pay your temps less, and you make it so that it weakens the position of the union. And then if there is a strike, you have all these temporary employees who are not unionized, who you can be like, hey, you still have to come to work on Monday, and then they're fucking struggling, so they're like, dude, I have to go to work. And then the union and them get mad, and it's a big thing, and it's a problem. So they were like, hey, how about we bring in temps? And the union was like, how about fuck no? They also point to increases in their 401k match. Of course, the union notes that the 401k was itself a concession union officials gave in to in 2018 when Mondelez said they could not continue to offer their employees a union pension plan. The point is that the least they can do is continue to provide an increasing match for employees' retirement plans. One of the bigger sticking points is a new employee hire benefits program that union officials say would be inferior to what existing workers are making. Keith Bragg, president of the union in Richmond, Virginia, explained that this time they want to have a two-tier system where newer people come in and would have a difference in insurance, which would be very divisive to the union. Saying that it clearly is an attempt by management to drive a wedge into the union in the future, which is exactly how all of this reads, right? It's the, hey, we're not bringing in temporary workers, but how about we make the new workers more valuable to management by having them cost less? And how about we up our matching of your 401k, which they used to have a pension plan. Those are all dick things, and the union's not having it, which is good. Especially, again, the key is, like, if this was hard times for Nabisco, and boy, no one's eating the tang anymore. Then maybe the union is like, okay, well, we can bend a little bit because we're all in this together. But when the company's making record profits, and again, scrolling back up to the top here, they're used to $3.5 billion a year in profit, and they made more than $5.6 billion in profits and spent $1.5 billion in the second quarter of this year. So that's like, I don't know if you guys are up on the maths as good as me, the doctor of math and magic, but That's called a raw deal. When the company's making money hand over fist off your labor, and they're like, how about we pay you less, or how about we hire people to do your job cheaper? You know how that's gonna go. So, Local 364 Vice President Michael Burlingham, a Portland Nabisco employee over the last 14 years, told The Guardian that these previous concessions from Mondelez International squeezed workers, and those previous negotiations have had long-standing ramifications. A lot of folks were very close to retirement and were able to do so under the old plan, but when the company pulled out, that basically meant they had to continue working. They're no longer eligible to retire. It impacted all of us in a way that we can no longer count on this as being a place we can retire comfortably from. And that's a thing that, like, I don't know why businesses do this. I genuinely don't get why businesses feel that it's completely okay and totally within their scope of things that are cool to do to basically fuck over the future of their staff. Like, I don't understand that. I get wanting to cut costs, but you know they're always there with a big smile to go, you know, we're a company made up of our workers. Our workers are the most important part of what we do. Our workers count and they matter and they're important and we love them and we want to kiss them and snuggle them good night and give them tea and cookies. But then they're like, yeah, but you know what? Work till you're dead. And we'll pay someone to come in and you know work the same job as you, but we're gonna pay them less, and then just look at you awkwardly like maybe it's time for you to fuck right off. You know, there was a time in the wild world we live in where if you worked for a company, you would count on retiring. That's the kind of shit that I was told. I remember being told because I'm a Gen Xer, late stage Gen X. I'm old as fuck. And my parents were boomers. And their generation would tell us all kinds of just ridiculous shit. Like, they'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember when I was your age, there wasn't a lot of jobs. So I would just read the classifieds, and then I'd read the obituaries. And when you saw somebody died in the obituaries, you would go to their company and be like, do you have any openings? Because that was a guarantee. They had an opening. That's not how it works anymore. You know, I'm never going to get a clock that says I worked for something for 25 years. I worked for the longest place I worked was roughly 14 years. And I started at one company, and then it merged with another company to form a bigger company. And then it divested itself and formed two smaller but still big companies. And all of that time, I was a contractor, aka a temporary worker. So my bargaining power was sweet fuck all. In fact, when I worked there, I was the lowest paid employee lowest paid person who did my job that they had. I then left, got a giant boost in pay, went back and got even more money from them. It's this whole thing where, and there's like data that talks about this, where when you work for a company, they can certainly be convinced to, you know, give you raises and things. But if you leave and come back, you get more money because the mentality is always you want to get somebody new in, somebody, you know, even if it's somebody who's been here before, but you want to get them in and bring them in and it'll be good. And then once you've got them, fuck them, right? There's that old joke about the lawyer goes to, he dies, he gets up to the pearly gates, and there's old St. Peter, and he says, you know, you're a weird one, actually. Like, we weigh the good and the evil in a person, and you're exactly half and half. Like, you were actually a pretty good person, but you were also a lawyer. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna give you an opportunity to try both heaven and hell, one day each. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to heaven first. Goes to heaven, and I mean, it's beautiful. There's clouds and people are playing the harp, and you know, there's children singing and stuff, and it's, you know, it's lovely. It's lovely. Don't get me wrong. But it was like, you know, all right, that's neat. And the next day he goes back down, and St. Peter's like, okay, you ready for hell? He's like, yeah, I'll get through this. And he goes to hell, and it's this beautiful golf green. And he's like, wait, what? And there's Satan, and Satan's like, hey, we're going to play some golf. You want to play some golf? I love golf. They play a bunch of holes. They stop at the clubhouse. They have a bunch of drinks, laughing, telling jokes, just enjoying themselves and everything. At the end of it, Satan's like, okay, it's time for you to go back to St. Peter now. But I hope you had a great time. I really appreciate, just getting the one-on-one time. I don't get a lot of that as like the king of hell, but it's really good. So he goes back to St. Peter, and St. Peter's like, okay, well, you've seen them both. What do you pick? And the lawyer's like, it's the weirdest thing. I never would have thought I would say this, but I want to go to hell. Hell was so much better, so much more interesting. St. Peter's like, cool, done. Poof, down he is in hell, standing in a pit of fucking fire, lava spraying all over the place, agony suddenly all over his body, and he looks up and he sees Satan, and he's like, dude, what the fuck? And Satan goes, yesterday you were a prospect, today you're an employee. That is my career path. I will always, because of circumstances that are in my universe that I'm perfectly okay with, I'm not employee, I'm a contractor. And so essentially a temporary worker. The equivalent, when I was teaching, I was an adjunct professor, although not really because I wasn't a professor, but that same role of non-tenured would never become tenured. There's this whole employment thing where we used to have jobs for like stability, to be able to have a family and buy a house and all these things. And with my parents' generation, that was still the way. And then with my generation, it just changed. And we're still left reeling. We're still confused as all fuck about what happened. But my kids' generation, I've got millennials and I've got Zoomers. And they're just growing up in this world that's like, yeah, you'll work 7 part-time jobs, and that's just fucking life. And, also, I hope that you don't want benefits or anything because we're just too fucking cheap to pay them. We're going to pay you as little as possible. We're going to make sure that you are spread thin between 17 jobs just to be able to keep the lights on. Fuck going to school. Fuck getting ahead. Fuck getting an education. You're just going to be screwed. I hope that's all right. I hope that's going to be okay for you. And, like, there's nothing about this that's okay. So, yeah, when Nabisco is like, well, we're going to get rid of your pension, but we're going to, we'll match your 401k. The difference there is substantial. 401k, I'm sure all of my Canadian brethren are aware that that's like an RRSP. And there's a big difference between having a pension and a company matching how much you put into your RRSP. So essentially, to get the benefit from the company, you have to put money in the RRSP, which is, a lot of people do that. I don't have an RRSP, largely because I've been poor my whole life. But, if I had an RRSP, I would be putting in, and theoretically this company would be meeting whatever I put in. And that sounds like a great deal, except that where's the onus on the company to make sure that they're looking after your long term? Where's the sense that the worker has value? If I don't have the money to put into an RRSP, why does that let the company off the hook for my retirement? It shouldn't, but it does. So yeah, that's an easy thing to not understand, especially for those of us that don't live in a world where we have company pensions and things like that. Like, I'll never have these things. Okay. Another important sticking point is a revision of overtime rules. Mondelez International writes that for bakeries, alternative work schedules on select high-demand lines, alternating 3 to 4 days per week, enabling better work-life balance, is a good thing. But union officials explained that these 3 to 4 days per week would be 12-hour shifts without overtime pay, and the concept of select high-demand lines can be and will be anything at any time at any season. On top of that, there'll be no consistency with these schedules as these high demand line shifts through the year, and balancing one's life when you have to suddenly work 4 and possibly more, depending on how a week breaks out at any given time, 5, 6, even 8 straight hour days without overtime compensation is the opposite of fostering work-life balance. Work-life balance, in my opinion, is one of those phrases invented by a HR department to be able to give lip service to the idea that they care about their staff, when in fact they're just like, haha, no. I actually hate that phrase because I use it, and I use it to describe, how, I don't hate it. When my bosses are like, hey, you should, work all weekend, I'll be like, well, I totally would, but, I'm as committed to my work-life balance as you are. And so I'm not gonna. I work as a contractor, as I said, and contractors, it's an interesting game because you don't get overtime. Overtime's just not a thing. And when I work on the weekend, a lot of the time, and a bunch of the companies I've worked at, really want you to not bill for those hours. So it's like they're making you complicit in your own wage theft. It's such a cool thing. And I decided a long time ago that, I'm willing to play ball a certain bit, but I am not willing to just, take one for the team every single time. That's not a thing that will ever happen. So, yeah. In 2016, the Jacobin reports, Nabisco laid off around 500 people after the union refused to take a 60% cut in wages and benefits. 60% cut in wages and benefits. Like everything else in this pandemic, the current trends of inequality have been accelerated. Overworking current employees as the need to hire more and more new employees is driving the two-tier health benefit system for Mondelez that Mondelez wants. So essentially what they're doing is, very clearly, they are putting all of the pressure on their staff, all of the financial pressure for the company. And again, $3.5 billion in a typical year in profit, not in revenue, in profit. And they're like squeezing them. 60% cut in wages and benefits. Like that's not even, like, there's no amount of lube that's going to make that okay. And then in the current situation where they've got this like absolute thumb on their staff because the world is fucked. And they're like, yeah, keep working harder, keep working harder, keep working harder, keep working harder. Exhausting their existing staff who they're trying to push away with this idea of implementing a new employee model that allows, whether it was the original idea of temporary employees or it's employees where we don't give them as good benefits as the other guys. It's all about squeezing as much money as they can. I mean, that's the capitalist thing. The whole concept of capitalism is sucking out the value from labor and from our labor into the pockets of those who make $17 million a year to have a fancy Dutch last name. At the Chicago shop, scheduling is brutal. Workers are regularly forced over, assigned a second 8-hour shift following the first one, with 80-hour weeks a frequent occurrence. Such schedules are increasingly common across the food production industry as employees are tuned to mandatory overtime instead of finding new hires. While such an approach means high wage costs, though this is precisely what Mondelez is seeking to get rid of in the new contract, understaffing saves on the benefits to which new hires would be entitled, as well as hiring and training costs. And that's an important thing. That's an important thing to understand. When you have existing staff, and your existing staff, they've got a great benefits package, and they're working these like ridiculous hours. It sounds like they're being compensated handsomely, but the actual compensation, you're paying those hours, and it's cheaper for you to just work your staff to death than to pay for the benefits for new staff. So you just don't care because they're not actually humans that work for you. They're essentially garbage. I almost said chattel, but I don't want to draw lines to chattel slavery because they're completely different things. And I don't want to in any way diminish the whole concept of slavery by referring to these people as chattel. We'll call them garbage because that is how the company's treating them. After pulling in billions of revenue, Mondelez International shut down their factories in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and Atlanta, Georgia, a couple months ago. Those facilities employed around 1,000 people and had been in operation for decades. It's the jumping-off point that the company had used to threaten concessions at the negotiation table. Having proven that they're willing to move their manufacturing jobs out of the U.S. into markets with cheaper labor forces, the union says it's trying to make sure that the jobs left in the United States are still worth fighting for. And then there's an interview here. So I think that that's almost that final paragraph is almost an after the thought, which is really unfortunate because offshoring jobs is really problematic. The truth is you could make Nabisco products anywhere, right? It doesn't require unique environmental conditions, at least as far as I understand things. It doesn't require a unique skill set among a local populace. It's essentially factory work, and you can have your factory anywhere. And the capitalist in the world would go, well, yeah, why wouldn't you choose to have your factory the place where it's going to cost you the least to do so? And then you can pass those savings on to your customers, and by that I mean shareholders. You can pass those savings on to your customers, and everything will be all worked out. In practice, that's evil, and it's the kind of evil that I'm just not a big fan of, not at all. So let's take a look at Mondelez. I thought I had their stuff pre-opened, but I did not. So we're just gonna push the fade button, and then we're gonna jump over, and we're gonna go to the old Google, and we're gonna type in. It's been 6 months since your last Google account visit. I feel like it hasn't. I feel like I'm still here. Google, what the fuck. Anyways. So we're going to look for Nabisco. No, seriously. Click Nabisco. Let's look at the stock buyback. I was doing a little snooping ahead of time. RJR Nabisco Holdings Corp. said its board authorized, just to make sure that I'm looking at something that's relevant. Oh, this is 1997. See, it's a good thing I did that. That would have been misleading at the very least. Well, yeah, 1.5 billion. We already talked about that. So suffice to say, I don't know if you guys are aware of what a stock buyback is, but essentially, it's a means by which companies will essentially inflate their own value in the shareholders' eyes by buying their stock and making it look like, their stock is more valuable because there's a demand for it. This is what I mean, though, when I just type in Nabisco, you get the Wikipedia, and you've got like some Snackworks thing. New York Times, workers making Oreos and other Nabisco snacks are on strike. Nabisco strike, the first in 52 years, expands into 5 states. No reference to like, hey, they're fucking their staff. Snacking made right. This is Mondelez International. Snacking made right. He's making those snacks for you. Look at all those snacks he's got there. Some kind of a gourd thing. So there's an ESG report. I don't actually know what an ESG report is. Let's just quickly take a look. Part of living our purpose and values, we have a clear and distinctive approach to ESG. I don't still know what ESG is. This approach is aligned to our business strategy, and we've had set public commitments to achieve meaningful progress and drive positive, lasting change. This approach is informed by our understanding of the issues that are most material to us as a business and the communities we touch, and in turn by the priorities we've set up for ourselves along our value chain. Working together in collaboration with partners, external advisors, regulate. Okay, what the fuck? What the hell is ESG? We're going to Google this. Google What is ESG? Oh, environmental, social, and governance criteria. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, a set of standards for a company's operations that socially conscious investors use to screen potential investments. Socially conscious investors, probably right in there with the Nabisco thing, right? If you're a socially conscious, you probably want to make sure that, hey, look, they're getting a 401k. That's good. But okay. Do we care about this? No, I don't think I do. I really don't. I don't think I care. So yeah, they've got an ESG report, and isn't that just the happiest of things? But there's other stuff on the page. So let's take a look. First off, here's their scrolling brand things. So we have Halls, Milka, which I think is those like shitty milks that you can buy in gas stations. Oreo. Some people may be familiar with Oreo as a cookie. Philadelphia cream cheese. Tang. Toblerone. Why does this not like scroll? Oh, I have to actually. Trident, Belvita, Cadbury, and Halls. Okay, so there's some fairly recognizable names. They're making some money. I would imagine during the pandemic we can say Cadbury for sure, Oreo definitely, maybe Philly, Tang probably, Toblerone, probably not. Who are we kidding? Belvita, I recognize this logo, but I can't think of what they do. Here's their second quarter earnings. Positioned for goal of continued and accelerated growth. Let's learn more. So, 6.2% organic net revenue growth. That's an interesting way of saying 6.2% growth that came on the back of a pandemic that we just took all the kinds of advantage of. So that's fun. Q2 2021 results. Ooh, it's a video. Do we want to watch the video? It's probably copyrighted. I'm going to push play and we'll find out. If it's got music, we'll stop. Oh, I'm muted on here, aren't I? No? Yeah, I can't hear a goddamn thing. Oh well. Oh, I bet that was Mr. Dirk Vanderhoont or whatever, Vanderpoot. We delivered another strong quarter on performance across all key metrics, including top line, profitability, and cash generation. We continue to see strength across the vast majority of our geographies, categories, and brands as we remain intensely focused on consistent execution and reinvestment. So I'm going to try and translate that because I don't fucking know what the hell it says. So we delivered another strong quarter of performance across all key metrics. So they have their key performance indicators and they banged them out of the park. That whole pandemic thing is really paying off for Dirk Vanderpoot, including top line. I don't know what fucking top line means. I'm assuming it's probably some thing. Let's just Google it. Top line revenue, probably related. Bottom line growth versus top line growth. The top line is a pure gross sales number showing how much revenue the company brought in for a given period. Okay, so they brought in fuck puddles of revenue. Their profitability, so revenue versus expenses, was kicking some ass, and cash generation. So they've been able to actually turn, they're making some physical cash out of the whole process. Continue to see strength across the vast majority of our geographies, categories, and brands. I'm assuming that means that they're good at, in all the places they're working. They don't have that one shit factory in Gwyneth, Idaho that they don't fucking like anymore. It's like everyone's doing good. All the categories of products are shining. Their brands are well. They remain intensely focused on consistent execution and reinvestment. Can't believe you started without me. I'm sorry, I am Canadian. I blame me, not you. Intensely focused on consistent execution and reinvestment. I'm assuming that consistent execution doesn't talk to the concept of factories, Oh, maybe it does. Maybe it does. Maybe one of the things they're talking about is the uniformity of the product that they sell, and how, if you buy a Nabisco product, it's not like this one's going to taste better than that one. They're going to be nice and uniform. I could be wrong about that. And then reinvestment. One would argue that, buying your own stock back is probably not reinvestment, but such is life. Let's see if there's any more, cool quotes from Dirk van de Poot. Oh, here's some highlights. Got highlights. Strong first half of year ahead of expectations provides confidence to raise FY organic net revenue growth outlook. I don't know what the fuck any of those words mean, but in other words, that strong first half of year where they made $5.2 billion in profit in the first half of the year, versus their normal $3.5 billion in an entire year. So this is the yay COVID yay. Effective strategy, clear growth drivers, and advantaged enablers. Again, this is business speak. Basically what it says is we're doing good business, and part of that good business is fucking over our staff. Driving a virtuous cycle and consistent results over time. Like, am I the only person that reads this and goes, a virtuous cycle? How is virtue involved here? I don't get that. But whatever. Consistent results over time, I think, refers more to the fact that they're consistently building forward and forward. Interestingly, that's not going to be something that's sustainable. And that's something that always drives me nuts about these kinds of things, especially during a pandemic, is, homeboy, this isn't a consistent set of results over time. You have an anomaly that you're taking advantage of, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. But this is anomalous. You cannot be like, hey, we used to make $3.5 billion a year. This year we've made $5 billion in the first half of the year. Boy, we're growing consistently. That is not consistent growth. That is inconsistent growth. Are you suggesting snack foods in a global corporation are lacking in virtue? I'm just saying I don't understand what virtue in the cycle. Cycles that I do consider virtuous would be like the cycle of life, Hakuna Matata, that kind of thing. Some business cycle, I'm sure there's like particular. This is the thing with these kinds of things, is they are always talking to their stakeholders and their shareholders and their management staff, and they'll be like, yeah, we've got to work on our virtuous cycle of self-improvement, or whatever the fuck cycle they're talking about. And then they use it as sort of shorthand. And those of us who don't regularly get their briefings are left going, what the fuck? Like the first time I heard the term meritocracy, I was like, are you shitting me? If virtuous means high moral standards, then this statement is bullshit. Exactly, right? I don't know how virtuous can even be in the conversation. And then we're leveraging revenue growth management capabilities to manage cost inflation and continued growth investment. That's clever. Leveraging revenue growth management capabilities to manage cost inflation and continue. I'm assuming they're talking about like sort of the ability for them as they bring in more revenue to purchase with more buying power and probably from a wider pool of sources, and that maintains their costs. So it's cool that they admit that they're managing inflation, so their costs are not substantially increasing due to inflation, but they're passing that on to the workers. All right, what else we got here? Q2 adjusted EPS, and that's again that existential pointlessness survey. I don't know what an EPS extension thing is, but we'll pretend like I could know. Q2 2021 organic net revenue growth. So chocolate was up 12.7%. No impact from pandemic there. Biscuits up 2.8%. Gum and candy up 28%. I'm surprised gum. Candy I can see. Gum, it definitely looks like... earnings per share. Thank you, I am Canadian. Yes. In other words, we need to grow revenue at the same time inflation and costs are killing them. Fuck, duh. Yes. So I'm surprised that gum and candy would be increasing. Chocolate, absolutely. Biscuits, certainly. But look at that. Fucking 28% of more people are like snogging on gum. And their gum is Trident. So I'm hoping that candy would, include other good things that, would make it so that it's not like a fucking nation of people who just suddenly decided that they wanted the Trident gum. I don't know. Maybe I'm a dick. I'm probably a dick. And is there anything else in here? Nope, looks like just snacking made right. Okay. So that was our rad video there. Delivered to the strong. Okay, net revenue increases. Oh, there's even more infographics. Returned $2.4 billion of capital to shareholders in the first half. So they took $2.5 billion and they gave it to the people who essentially loaned them the money to be a business. Now that's a really not accurate take, but shareholders are, they're the owners essentially. So they've not only did homeboy Van de Poot make $17 million, and I think that $17 million is year to date. So I could be wrong about that, but either way, he makes a fuck ton of money. And they took $2.4 billion and basically paid dividends, if I'm reading that correctly. So their shareholders all got a nice little check, and then they looked at their staff and they're like, dude, no 401k. Well, we'll match your 401k. We won't give you back your pension plan. Also, is it cool if we bring in temporary employees? No. Okay. How about we just have a different class, shall we call them, of new hires. So new hires will get shittier benefits and shittier money, and then we can all just glare at you and wait for you to die. But yeah, $2.5 billion of capital to shareholders. Diluted EPS, which again I'm looking down, is earnings per share. Diluted EPS, that's when you take your earnings per share and you dissolve it in water, was 0.76, up 100%. Adjusted EPS 1 was 66 cents, up 1.6% on a constant currency basis. None of those words make sense to me. If I understand correctly, that word means changed. Announced agreement to acquire Chipita, a leading cake and pastries company in Europe. Chipita. Interesting. Dividends are taxed as income. Capital return is taxed as capital gain or loss at quarter of tax hit. Return on capital gains means here's your money back in dividends, but we deem it capital so you can avoid capital gains by not having to declare them. Yeah, the whole capital gains thing is like, I don't have money, so I don't have to worry about these things. Like if they came after me for capital gains, it'd be like, hey, wow, you worked that gig and they paid you $20 in beer. You pay taxes on that. Which I don't. Haha, stick it to the man. And then raising organic net revenue outlook for full year to 4% plus. So a lot of this is really boring. What this says is two things. It says, number one, we made a fuck pile of money. A fuck pile of money. And number two, we're not, actually it says three things. We're not giving any of it to our staff. We're giving it to the people whose favor we want to curry. And number three, it says we hire a lot of business speak people to come up with business speak things and show all sorts of important business speak. I am Canadian. I know you speak this language a lot better than I do, but I don't think you speak it as well as these kind of monsters do. So in other words, capital is protected, income is for us plebes. Yeah. Income is it's taxed. It's taxed the fuck out of. We all pay taxes. Depending on how much money you make is how much tax you pay, and it's on a sliding scale. But these $17 million a year motherfuckers, they're not paying $17 million, 28% tax or something bullshit. They're getting away with it. Labor's not an asset, it's an expense. Remember, Jim, staff equates to labor. Labor equates to cost. Costs are expensive, and we need to cut expenses to make more profit. And I definitely agree. And I said earlier, I could see some of the things that they're suggesting to the people that they're shafting with this and why the strike is happening. I could see, like, if times were bad, I could see the union being like, we get it, dude. Like, we all gotta take one on the chin to get through this ugly, ugly time. But when this ugly, ugly time is record fucking profit, eat a dick. Like, when is enough enough? And I know that's anti-capitalist thought, But like, there comes a point where companies have to be able to go, you know what? Let's just share some of the wealth with our staff. I know. Crazy talk. Sinister, terrible, awful, horrible, no good, very bad talk. Capitalism is failing people. I would say you can even drop the word people there. I would just say capitalism is failing. Because this is the net end result of capitalism. Remember, this is a company that came to be because Kraft was too big, and they were like, we will smash you if you don't fix this. And they were like, okay, we'll fix it. And they made a company, and now that company is making $5 billion a half a year in profit. This is the capitalism. It's capitalisming well. Corporations reduce expenses to get more profit. End of story. Investing in people is only an asset if you own them. And the contract, it sure looks. That's another thing that we obviously they don't own their staff. But when you're making your staff work, Frito-Lay was they were talking about 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. Like, you're basically a serf at that point. You wake up, you go to work, you go home, you go to sleep. And, you could get another job, sure. When you gonna put them resumes out? How much time have you got in the day to really pound that pavement, get those interviews? You don't, because you work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Here they're saying hey, we're all about the work-life balance, bro. We're gonna just drop that down to 3 or 4 shifts of 12 hours apiece. They leave you exhausted, drained of everything. Because keep in mind, these are human beings, so they probably have more than just their job in their lives. They maybe have families, they maybe have loved ones who are dealing with the world around them, all that kind of shit. They maybe got bills, all these things. And this giant fucking leech called their employment just sits on their fucking neck and sucks. It's unmanageable. And this is capitalism. The reality is this. Yes, damn libtard, how dare you say capitalism is failing? Don't make me go all O'Toole Kenny on you. I know you'd hate that. Everyone would hate. Oh man, I told a joke in a chat the other day. I was like, why did New York get hurricanes and Alberta get Jason Kenney? Because New York got first pick. But yeah, I look at this system and I go, how can this continue? How can we continue to siphon everything away from 98% of people and just have it enrich the top 1% of 1% the most? It's laughable. This can't go on forever, and it won't go on forever. And I don't know if someone hasn't bothered telling the people that are making these decisions just what happened to the wealthy class every time this happens. It's not good. And no, that's not me going let's get our pitchforks and our guillotines. I'm not saying that. I don't want this to end violently. I want this to just be a better world. Unfortunately, there's no way that's going to happen by waiting for those people to just go, you know what? I think I have enough money now. I think I'm good. You imagine Jeff Bezos being like, you know what? Now that I look at this on paper, I never really thought about it, but you carry the 6. Yeah, I'm screwing over my staff. I should probably share the wealth better. That will never fucking happen. It can't happen. And that's why I'm all for the idea of governments bailing out companies. 100% behind it. I have worked for companies that have been bailed out by the government. I totally get it. But you know what the government needs to do? They need to take a portion of ownership. And I know we're talking about public ownership of private things, and that's communism. And isn't that terrible? Only communism if you go all the way in and you also adopt all the other things that are communism. It's certainly a socialist perspective, and a good one, because the country has to be able to get their money. And if we're giving you $100 billion to stay afloat, stay the fuck afloat. And also you lose part of your business. We can do this. Just be a Republican, not a Republican. Or is that a or a U? It's funny to me. Like I genuinely, I don't get how people aren't seeing this. Like this is not the science of rocketry. And I'm hoping, against hope probably, but I'm hoping that more and more people are starting to pay attention. Because, like, you know, I feel hopeful about Zoomers and millennials. I feel hopeful that they're seeing through some of this. A lot of them have very different perspectives than what I had, than what you had. I am Canadian, certainly than my parents had, because the world's different. My generation was the generation that basically had to bridge the gap. And what that means is we just got slapped on coming and going. We didn't have a fucking clue. We still don't have a fucking clue what's going on. That bridge analogy, you know, the bridge between the two new worlds and the old world kind of thing. Well, that bridge is, I got 1 foot over here, 1 foot over here, and that's me over the cliff, and people are just walking across my crotch. That's how I feel about it. It's interesting and it's fascinating, and it is cool. Like, it's cool to be here and watch the world change. I just hope that it changes in ways that are good. Because right now, I don't know. You know, it's a tough one, and it's a little bit frightening. Yeah, I don't know. So Nabisco, what can you do? Well, the obvious answer is don't buy Nabisco products. Again, we'll pop back and take a look at what that means. One sec here as I fade over. Looking at their brands. Oh shit! Apparently went one too far. So that means don't eat the Halls when you got a sore throat. Don't drink the Milka when you're wanting milk in a gas station somewhere. Don't dunk those Oreos. Don't schmear it. Tang is its own joke. I can't. It just don't drink orange juice in space. Don't be a Toblerone. Oh, fuck off with the ugh. See, I am old, and I'm like, how does the internet work? Why I'm clicking with my mouse. Why? Fuck. Why can't I? And it's gonna open the tank. No, it's not. Okay, so yeah, don't eat your Toblerones. Not that you were anyway. Fuck Trident. I don't care what dentists say. Clearly, I don't care what dentists say. I don't know what Belvita is. Let's just take a moment and find out. I'm going to open the link in a new tab so we can go there. And then the Cadbury's, that one's going to be hard for me because I do like me some chocolate. But you know what? I'm willing to take the hit. Fucking, I will do what I can to support not giving these people money. Not Chips Ahoy. Yeah, unfortunately, homeboy, it's Chips Ahoy is part of it. Belvita. What the fuck is... It was introduced in 1998, so that would be a combination of... Oh, this is some weird fucking, like, biscuit grain thing. Many people skip breakfast because they feel too pressed for time because they work for fucking Nabisco. Even though they know how important a nutritious breakfast can be. That's why we've created Slurm, the ultimate drinkable product. You can just... open your mouth on the assembly line and drink your Slurm and do your job. Shareholder value. That's why we developed Belvita breakfast biscuits. Oh, these are breakfast business. They are 4 hours of nutritious energy, so you only need 3 of those during shift. History, 1998, launches in France as Le Petit Déjeuner. And then we have nothing until 2000, where it expands to 7 European countries. Then in 2010, they changed the name to Belvita, which, again, like, I personally would be much better if it was Le Petit Déjeuner. Mild. And then 2011, introduced to the UK. 2012, expands to North America. 2015, launches its first breakfast biscuit in China. Oh, the first breakfast. These people are innovating. Innovating, I tells ya. So, eat your slurm 3 times a shift. Yeah. Boycotts are almost impossible to actually implement. But you know what you can do? You can do your best. And that's all I would ever ask of anybody. Take the time and be like, hey, I'm not okay with the way that this company treats its staff. I'm not okay watching a company that is just fucking raking in the money and not looking out for its people. I'm not okay with that. So I'm not going to give them money. Once again, I start up my Reaper and it's got the echo thing happening. This is entirely my fault. I don't know if you guys ever hear that or not, but I totally hear that echo. I'm gonna take a quick 10-minute break and I'm gonna play cheesy music that I wrote with MIDI stuff, and it's not good. And I'm gonna play. Let's play. You know what? Let's play. No. We'll do that when I get back. We'll play Bernie Sanders. He's always good for the backdrop on these. Where's my smoking image? There we are. And I'm gonna press play. Also, if you're watching this and you've never watched before, hey, maybe it's time to think about liking and subscribing and all that kind of shit. It's appreciated either way. I will be right back, but first let me press play, and then I'll leave you with the legendary Mr. Bernie Sanders' words. If I can find a fucking tab. There we go. And why is this not playing? Because I pushed the wrong button, that's why. Alright.
We live in a world today where there are several 100 million people starving to death. They're starving.
That one has background music. God damn it. Fuck, I'm so bad at this. Jesus.
Of the Senate's consideration of S-Con Res 5, the majority and Republican managers of the concurrent resolution, while seated or standing at the manager's desks, be permitted to deliver floor remarks, retrieve, review, and edit documents, and send email and other data communications from text displayed on wireless personal digital assistant devices and tablet devices. I further ask unanimous consent that the use of calculators be permitted on the floor during consideration of the budget resolution. Further, that the staff be permitted to make technical and conforming changes to the resolution if necessary, consistent with the amendments adopted during Senate consideration, including calculating the associated change in the net interest function and incorporating the effect of such adopted amendments on the budgetary aggregates for federal revenues, the amount by which the federal revenues should be changed, new budget authority, budget outlays, deficits, public debt, and debt held by the public. Finally, that the following staff members from my staff and from Senator Graham's staff be given all access floor passes for consideration of the budget resolution S-Con Res 5. Majority staff, Michael Jones, Joshua Smith, Michael Lawless, Ethan Rosenkrantz, and Ari Robin Hopp, and Warren Gunnels. Republican staff, Nick Myers, Matthew Jerome, Matthew Joe Keeley, Doug Diziak, and Matthew Rimkunis.
Objection? Without objection.
Mr. President.
Senator from Vermont.
President, I rise today to speak in support of the budget resolution that was introduced today. Mr. President, let us be clear and let us in the Senate understand what the American people know all too well. And that is that our country is currently experiencing the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression and the worst public health emergency in over 100 years. January marked the deadliest month of the pandemic, with over 90,000 Americans losing their lives as a result of COVID-19. 90,000 Americans in 1 month. In the midst of all of this, over 90 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured and are unable to afford to go to a doctor when they become ill. The isolation and the anxiety caused by this pandemic has resulted in a horrible increase in mental illness, in depression, in anxiety, and in suicidal ideation. President, today, as we speak, over half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, including millions of essential workers who put their lives on the line each and every day. More than 24 million Americans are unemployed, underemployed, or have given up looking for work. While hunger in this country, hunger in the richest country in the history of the world, is at the highest level that we have seen in decades. Because of lack of income, over 14 million Americans are behind on their rent, averaging some $5,800 a family. And many of those families face eviction all across this country. People are worried that when the moratorium on evictions ends, they're going to be thrown out of their homes, put out on the street. Americans who worry about eviction understand that they must not join the 500,000 Americans who are already homeless. That's some of
Jesus Christ. I'm so good at internet. Yeah, fuck landlords. That's what I was going off about there. It's cool. Like, you bring nothing to the table except the fact that somehow you own a house or a property of some description and you rent it out to people. I worked as a bouncer for many years. I know, hard to imagine, tiny guy like me. I worked as a bouncer for this bar called Distortion, which was a live music venue. It's the only way I'd ever be a bouncer, working in live music, because, well, there's a bunch of reasons, but the biggest one is because that's my world. I love that. But Distortion is currently empty. And it's empty because somebody in a corporate boardroom owned the building that we were in, and we had trouble paying the rent. Absolutely. The rent was outrageous. We always squared up. And at the very end, we owed a bunch of money. They sent a note saying, hey, you better catch up. And we did. We actually moved heaven and earth, and we were able to catch up. And the following month was supposed to be an amazing month. We had like these 2 huge dubstep shows, or I think 3 huge dubstep shows. We had some touring bands that were huge. It was all going to be okay. And the touring bands all canceled. The dubstep shows were like garbage. The 1 week we had this huge dubstep show, and my Thursday night beercore show brought in more revenue than the Saturday dubstep festival, fucking whatever. It was bad, and the end of the month came, and we couldn't pay the full rent, and they were like, and your locks are changed. Now that was, I think, 4 years ago, somewhere in there. That space is still empty. So somebody decided it was a better idea financially to just not have a tenant than to have a tenant who was paying most of the rent on time and had to play catch up sometimes. I get why that would be fucking annoying. Absolutely. But some better than zero. And you can argue that, oh, well, how could they possibly have known or whatever that, like the space would be empty? Well, that's what happens. Bars all over the city that are suddenly available for rent don't get rented up because there's just no way. You can't make a go of it because they still have this idea that they need to charge ridiculous sums of money. I'll give you an example. I think this is, I'll pop open the browser view and we can sort of figure this out together, whether or not this is still on the market. So I'm going to hop to Google. What the fuck is the name of that bar? The Ranchman's? I think it's Ranchman's. Ranchman's, Calgary. Oh, sold. Okay, so it did get sold. That's actually surprising to me. Let's look at the article from Ranchman searching for new owner amid COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic and Calgary's economic downswing were factors behind Calgary's iconic Ranchman's bar being put up for lease. If you've never heard of the Ranchman's, count yourself lucky. It's a shitty fucking country bar. The whole and by country bar I mean bar where teen girls go to get drunk and teen boys go to get laid. It's gross. See if they say anything about. Yeah, 2 for lease signs appeared outside the bar with the price of monthly rent of the 17,000 square foot building listed at $40,000 a month. $40,000 a month. 17,000 square foot. Now, 17,000 square foot, that sounds fucking huge. Their capacity, I think their capacity was, maybe we can Google it. And how about I don't type in the wrong thing? Okay, Ranchman's, fuck my fingers. Ranchman's capacity. Seating capacity, 1,000. 1,000 people. That sounds phenomenal. Except that that's not really the case. And when I say that, so here it says 1,100. The thing about capacity, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize, is capacity changes based on the whims of whatever corporate elite is. No, I'm just kidding. It actually is controlled by the fire department. And every time they redo their math, capacity equations get a little bit more complex, and actual capacity gets a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. So when you get a place 10 years ago, I don't know when the Ranchman's last, was rezoned or re-estimated, but they got their number of 1,000 people. You're probably far less than that now. You're probably looking more like 600, as ridiculous as that sounds. So to make the same amount of money when you've got 1,000 people all drinking and carousing and having fun versus having 600 people, it's a lot harder. We found this one out when we opened, I guess I don't need this view. When we opened Distortion, the place before us, I think, had like a 300 people capacity or whatever, the Trap and Gill. I'm not 100% sure. But it was, it was a decent sized room. I think it was like 300 or 320, something like that. I might be completely wrong on the numbers. But when we had the fire department come in, they did their math and they were like 176, I think, was the original number. And we were like, fuck, what? Like, no. And they were like, okay, tell you what. Here are the things you can do to change the number. So we did those things. Pulled out a bunch of seats that were just like taking up space that, you know, normal people could just be standing there instead of having a table, that kind of thing. We jumped through all of the hoops, and they came back and they're like, yep, you guys did the work. 178. So our capacity was 178. I will not lie to you, there were times we had 600 people in that fucking bar. But 178 was our limit. I think those are the numbers anyways, but like that's fucking ridiculous. 178 people in there, you would be stunned at how much space you'd have with 178 people. And it's, you know, it's all based on fire code, and no one wants to be unsafe, but it's a fucking bar. Bars are always unsafe. If there's a fire in a bar, everyone's fucked because you're already, you know, a drunk schmuck and, you know, whatever. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's the thing. And I guarantee you that the 1,000 or 1,100 person capacity Ranchman's probably has a much smaller capacity now. The difference is they probably have the money to grease the appropriate wheels and make sure that the fireman's ball this year is going to be super elegant, and they probably won't be as badly hurt by it. But anyways, when things are empty, they usually stay empty. The place where Vern's is right now was empty for the 5 years before Vern's took it over. Before that, it was a Legion. I know this because before they signed the lease, Clint wanted to bring us down, me and Dongo and Sonia, all from Johnny Incognito fame, wanted to bring us down to take a look at the space and figure out what he wanted to do with it. We talked about a bunch of different options, and one of the things we talked about was the fact that we could, you know, have the stage in a way better place than it is. But Clint had it in his head that he wanted things the way he was going to do it. We walked in, and it was literally like that room had not been opened in 5 years. There was still, at the front door, there's this little like coat check looking square thing. That's where we usually do door money and stuff. And leaning up against the wall there was the prices for the final night of the Legion being open. It was like $2.50 highballs and, you know, $2.75 draft beer or whatever. And we were like, that's so fucking weird. Like, it's been 5 years. Holy shit. This is what happens. So Distortion's going to be empty for a very long time. There's a second bar underneath Distortion that was empty the entire time we ran that bar. And this makes better sense to a landowner than having paying renters. Now, you could probably posit the question that, you know, well, maybe they didn't like us as tenants. But we were there for 4 years. They knew what they were getting into. The first night we were open, I remember we had bands playing, and this little Russian woman from behind the front desk, because it was attached to a hotel, came storming over, and she gets up in my face, and she's like, "It's too loud." And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. It's a live music venue. You guys signed a lease, like, but I'm not the owner. So she's like, "Where is owner?" And I point to Mark and bring her over, and I'm like, "Mark, this is the front desk lady from the hotel. She's very upset about the noise." And he's like, "I don't know what to tell you. It's a live music venue. We signed a lease. We're here. We're doing this. And, you know, we have complaints." Okay. I bet you had complaints when it was the Atlantic Trappin' Gill and you had drunken newfies brawling on the fucking front step. I bet that was a thing. That's what happens when you have a bar. Sorry. And honestly, the live music venue may have been, you know, louder than a lot of other bars, but your clientele is way better behaved. That's just fact. That's why I would only bounce in a live music venue, because I never, as a bouncer, I never had to throw a punch once. Never. That's awesome. Anyways, I saw Bernie talking about landlords. I had to comment. I'm lucky enough to live in a place with a pretty good landlord, but landlords on the whole are scum. It's their job to be scum. I have no love in my heart for them. That's just the way it is. I hate that fucking place. I fuck Ranchman's. I hate that fucking place. I hate that fucking vibe. Yeah, like, it's a great place to get either gonorrhea or stabbed. But if you're not looking for those things, probably not the room for you. In my experience, I never went to the Ranchman's because I never needed to, but I went to some of the other places that are similar to it, and I just never had a good time. I always felt like every single guy is just waiting for me to step out of line so they can punch something different. But at the same time, know when they're not gonna, because they're also, quite scared of a fellow like me. But I wasn't welcome. I wasn't made to feel welcome. I used to catch the cabs outside of one of those bars because it was down from one of the bars I used to go to. And it was a lot easier to get a cab there. And the shit I saw, man, like bouncers choke slamming dudes, and and literally like there's a cop car right in front of them because the cops would just park out front and wait for the next guy to pick up. And the bouncers would come out and there'd be like 6 guys grabbing one little skinny kid, just beating 8 shades of shit out of him. And then they'd look up and like wave over, come on over. And the cops would come over and they're like, we're going to fuck this one up too. Because that's what cops do. Because all cops are bad, just like all landlords are bad. It's a fucking twisted cycle. Whew, I got a little derailed there, didn't I? Pardon me. So, I was thinking about other stuff I wanted to talk about. And I was like, we should talk about the municipal election. That's important. I couldn't find a goddamn thing in in either the Herald or the Sun about the municipal election, except for letters to the editor going like, I tell you what, man, Mr. Farkas is going to kill all the libs. I don't think he is, but I also don't know that he wouldn't. He's a little scary. But literally there was, there's nothing. You look, there's like the upcoming election. I clicked on that, and of course it's all about the federal election. And then I was like, well, maybe we should look at something about the federal election. And the only thing I found was the fact that Justin Trudeau sucks so bad, largely because he doesn't even have a platform, ha ha lol, to which I was like, I bet the NDP have a platform, and they do. So, I am Canadian. I think you might be the only person watching. I can click and confirm. Nope, I see that, hi, Squid Eater is here. Hi, Squid. I see you on all kinds of really cool places. So I hope you're doing well, and I see Buvet, or Buvit, or whatever, however I say that. So I'll give you guys, if you want, we can talk about something else, but I'd like to go through NDP's platform. NDP, for those, if you're watching and you're from not Canada, NDP is the New Democratic Party, which is essentially our most socialist option here in Canada, which I know you guys probably would think that all of our options are socialist, but no. We have all kinds of hardline conservative monsters. Works for I Am Canadian? Well, if it works for I Am Canadian, it works for me. All right, let's fade over. And we'll switch tabs. Because I popped this one open. I haven't read it at all. But the idea popped into my head just before this all happened. Now, if you're not from Canada, you may be looking at this and going, oh, good, a ethnically balanced photo op. That's great. Well, I will have you know that there is Jagmeet Singh, who is, you may know him from his awesome game of Afterlife with, I think it was with Hassan and AOC, but he is the leader of the NDP party. He ain't no Jack Layton. That's true. Jack Layton was a absolute superhero in my opinion. We actually, one of my old bands wrote a song about Jack Layton called Happy Socialist Troll. And it was about how he was the last socialist troll left, and then he died, and I felt very sad about that. I actually teared up when I read his letter to Canadians because he was such a good man. But Jagmeet Singh is pretty fucking fantastic, so we're gonna talk about. And when I say that, I'm talking in a cult of personality way. No, all of the progress that we've made in the last few years has not been the fault of the Liberal government in power. It's been the fact that the Liberal government in power didn't have enough to do anything, so they've had to curry favor with the New Democrats, who've had a real impact on our society. And I hope that we will continue that. Nothing against him personally, but his privileged background in private schooling, etc., I find him very ineffective. I don't know enough about him, like his background. What I would say is effective is I think he's a really good orator. And I think that he has his party has been really effective at leaning on the liberals in power and making positive, like I would say CERB is largely the result of having a minority liberal government that needs that NDP support. I love he's a proud turban wearing Seed. He's predictably fluffy, definitely fluffy. He's very progressive, right? And the fluff is real. We need more of a Horgan BattleBot in the NDP or a Motley Crue fighter. I think that conservatives are so close to being, like in Canada, are so close to being okay with progressivism. They're like that when Fox voters, got the chance to talk to Bernie Sanders and they were like, wait, we're for the working class too. Why does this weird socialist fella make so much goddamn sense? I think that it's so close, but if we had someone who was like stronger and more like vitriolic about like, no, the workers, I think that would turn off those people. I'm not saying that we need to worry about everybody or winning a battle of hearts and minds or anything like that. I think Jagmeet is a very effective face for that party. But I would like to see somebody with a little more gumption. So explore our commitments to you. Type what matters to you. Example, jobs, climate. I'm gonna bet that if I type what matters to me here, it'll be like live music venues, and there ain't gonna be shit. But let's look at some of the things. So better care immediately pops out. So let's take a look. New Democrats are committed to strengthening public health care and expanding it to make sure everyone is covered for the care they need to get and stay healthier longer. Let's learn more. Assuming, I did click. For a second there, I was like, I'm a fucking boomer, aren't I? Taking better care of each other. So decades of conservative cuts and liberal inaction have harmed the services we count on, and Canadians are left struggling. They can't access health care, medication, mental health care, or home care that they or their loved ones need. Millions of Canadians are living in poverty and homelessness, and too many of them are people living with disabilities, seniors, veterans, and children. Totally agree with that statement. And I would say that liberal inaction, whether it was as the leaders of the House or as the official opposition in the years before, they have not safeguarded our public services. And yes, Americans, we do have free healthcare, we have cheaper medication, we have access to mental health, home care, all of those things, but the quality and the availability has dramatically reduced in the last forever. New Democrats believe we all benefit when we live longer, healthier lives, and we're committed to a future where, that's all very fluffy. Better Canadian healthcare for all. Shouldn't have to pay out of pocket or compromise on their quality of care because of gaps in our healthcare system. We have more and more of that these days. The other day, I'm not going to tell a story. It's not a flattering story to me. But we have gaps, like in my teeth. And teeth is a gap. I want to see fucking healthcare include dental, because dental actually affects your overall health. If you have a mouth that's not good, you are constantly swallowing poisons. Not only that, but you actually are significantly higher likelihood of having, especially for things like I just had a tooth yanked because of what the fuck is the word? I had it, like literally it was in my face, dental abscess. And dental abscesses, some are finding data now that says that they might be the leading cause of stroke. If they can't pay for the military, they can pay for a healthcare system. Yes, I don't see the logic. Or if they can pay for the military, they can pay for the healthcare system. I don't see the logic. Yeah, no, 100%. Our military budget isn't as huge as other places, but we have a gigantic military budget. And I'm a firm believer. Oh, hang on, I have to pause my stream for a second for my teenage son to bum a cigarette. How many would you like? 2? Let me get on that for you. I enjoy these little conversations. There you go, bud. Where was I? Any thoughts on leadership? Oh, the Green Party? Oh, I'm real hesitant about the Green Party. I'll tell you why. I Don't know much about the new leader of the Green Party. Let's pop over. I saw a thing about her, and that Green Party of Canada. And I'll explain my concern about, and I think my concern actually relates to the article I saw about her, Enemy Paul. I'm assuming I'm saying that correct, Enemy. If I'm not, I genuinely apologize. It is not my intent to be like, Kamala Harris, it's, I just don't know yet. So Kamala Paul, or Enemy Paul is the new president, or the new leader of the Green Party in Canada. And that has been not without some concerns from the party membership. I'm going to just see if I can say Enemy Paul controversy. There we go. We'll go to global news. Green Party feud continues as party executives move to pull Paul's membership. That sounds like a dick move. So, Green Party executives have taken the first step towards suspending Enemy Paul's membership in the party she leads, the latest development in a feud that has threatened her future in the top job. Dana Taylor, interim executive director of the Greens' main governing body, has kicked off a membership review that would suspend Paul's status and bar her from representing the party while it is underway, say 3 senior party sources. What the? Things are jumping around on me. The Canadian press granted them anonymity because they were not authorized to speak about internal matters publicly. Blah, 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 blah. Review emerged from a special meeting of the Federal Council Tuesday night where Taylor announced the probe would go forward. Paul, who sits in the... Okay, I don't fucking care about that. They say the stated reason for the review is that Paul launched legal proceeding against the party, an accusation disputed by officials close to the leader. The Code of Conduct says legal action against the Green Party of Canada by one of its members automatically triggers a review headed by the executive director. All 3 sources say the legal proceeding referred to in the membership review concerns a cease and desist letter sent from Paul's legal counsel to a federal council member or members. The details of the letter and whether it constituted a legal action against the party and is thus grounds for review remain unclear. So essentially, we have a new leader, hopefully permanently. From everything I understand about Enemy Paul, fantastic progressive voice, and is currently, so progressive that the party is against her. That actually makes a lot of sense to me because my complaint with the Green Party in Canada has always been, progressive. They talk a lot about the environment and they talk a lot about environmental issues, but if you look at their policies, they're very economically conservative. At least historically they have been, and that's always been my concern with them, is they look like a green version of the Conservative Party. And I don't think the world needs anything even remotely looking like that. Can I get you to close your door there, dude? Oh, I enjoy hip-hop. Yes. So, yeah, in terms of the question from I'm Canadian, any thoughts on leadership there and the clusterfuck they're in? Evening, Squid. How you doing? Yeah, my thoughts on it are... Again, I'm not a member. I don't have, behind-the-scenes knowledge or anything like that. The impression I have is that by hook or by crook, somehow they elected a leader who is fantastic, woman of color, and who is, from everything I have read about Enemy, is really a great choice, but doesn't fit that fiscal conservative kind of vibe that the Green Party kind of quietly has always had. And it looks like there is a rift in the party that is saying, we're not all the way 100% cool with the idea of this person leading us when they don't have our same fiscal values. Again, I could be wrong. Conservatives on financial, economic, business, and progressive on social environment. Yeah, and that's why I've always been turned off by them, is because social environment, being progressive, fantastic, 100% fantastic. The problem is that in order to do that, you actually have to be progressive when it comes to your economics and your finances, because we're not digging our way out of the climate catastrophe that we're stuck in without having like some really good policies. On the weekend, on Saturday, I reviewed this article. It was a editorial from a local columnist who was like, the goddamn world is a troubling place, and let me tell you, these kids today have it hard. I know it's going to be hard for them, and Justin Trudeau doesn't have an answer. And I was like, no, he fucking doesn't, so let's vote him out. But let's probably not put Aaron O'Toole in, he's got answers, but they're just fucking terrible. Aaron O'Toole, the head of the Conservative Party, his answers are like, what we need to do? We should save money on food by just eating poor people. Their meat. That's good for me. Look at me. I'm big and rough and tough. Anyways, so that's my take on the Green Party thing. Again, I don't know if I'm right. I am a million miles away. I have not paid attention to the Green Party specifically for the reasons that I've talked about. But that's the vibe I have. So yeah, better healthcare for all. Liberal and conservative governments have failed to prioritize the health of Canadians and brought the healthcare system to the brink of collapse. I do not disagree with that. We'll strengthen public healthcare by introducing a universal pharmacare program, working with provinces and territories to reduce wait times, increasing our domestic production capacity of vaccines and PPE and more. One of the complaints, things happened. One of the complaints that happened over the Trudeau government was that he failed in the local production of vaccines. And my immediate reaction to that was like, no. Not that I'm a fan of Justin Trudeau. I think he's a schmuck. But, the argument just seemed very empty and weak. And then I did a stream where I actually dug into, what the story behind the vaccine plants that were closed and all, what is the real deal there. And at the end of the thing, I have to admit that, yes, he definitely misstepped. The argument that conservatives would have been better suited to the job of leadership during the pandemic is, of course, entirely laughable. But one cannot argue that Trudeau certainly dropped some balls there. And one of those is domestic production capacity for vaccines, which we just don't have right now. And we could have had if we had done some smart leading stuff, but we didn't. So it's good to see that. I also worry that that's a bit of a shallow promise. Canadians we're used to shallow promises from our leadership. So talking about the domestic production capacity of vaccines during a pandemic is it's easy. I just hope it's real. Extending Medicare to cover services you need. The next decade, Canadians need a historic expansion of the services covered under our national healthcare system. That means filling gaps in our public healthcare to increase things like dental, vision, mental health, and prescription medication. I am all on board for that. I was just talking about the whole dental thing, which is obviously near and dear to my heart. As a guy who, as a contractor, like I was talking about at the beginning of the stream, I haven't had a dental package in 25 years, which isn't actually true. I had a dental package without realizing I had a dental package. I had signed up for a new company and I was going through a new consulting firm, and somehow they had got me a benefits package, and I knew this, but I'm so not used to the idea of having a benefits package that I was like, oh, okay, cool, I have a benefits package, I should totally do things, and then immediately forgot about it. And then when the opportunity presented itself, and I was like, oh, I should get dental work done, I would forget about it. And then my boss came to me and they're like, hey, we want to switch your third-party provider. Is that cool? And I was like, I don't fucking care. I got no loyalty to anybody. So they switched my third-party provider. And that's when I realized, I was like, those were the people giving me... oh, fuck. So I've been paying into a benefits package for 6 months. I don't think I could have used it. And I don't think I could have stopped them from switching. But, they still... I didn't get the benefits. Yay. So that's a big thing as far as I'm concerned. Ditto with prescription medication. Vision is not a thing that I care about because I have super duper good eyes, but I don't care about it for me. I care about it for everybody else. I think our all of these things, we as a society should be looking at the actions we take as the expression of who we are. And so when a country like spends trillions of dollars on a military, America, or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the military, Canada. I'm just kidding. We spend more than that. But when we spend a shit ton of money on the military, and then we're like, oh, helping people not be sick or see things that they can't see right now. It's hard. Oh, I don't know where we find them. How about stop killing brown people? Maybe. Oh, I know. Stop militarizing the police. That'd be a good source of money. Tax the rich. Tax the fucking churches. It's like I'm turning over the couch and finding all kinds of change in the cushions. Anyway, so clearly NDP is gonna have a bunch of policies about healthcare. That should come as no surprise. Healthcare is in Canada as the result of the NDP, although not Jagmeet Singh. It was Tommy Douglas many years ago. He was never leader of the country, but he was a Saskatchewan politician who brought about universal healthcare in Saskatchewan and then pushed it onto the national stage. So thank him for all of that. Making life more affordable for everyday people. So squeezed everything from housing to medication, gets more expensive. We'll put a stop to skyrocketing prices and make sure young people can build a good life. I find that, I kind of want to click this. Yeah, let's click this just because I find that like really dubious. Let's find out what they have to say. Maybe they can convince me. Once again, Jagmeet Singh shaking hands with people in what appears to be, if I was guessing, I'd say a Denny's, which is very Canadian. Hey, we're here for election season, eh? Grab a cup of coffee and we'll talk about her, eh? Do her up good. Kick her right behind a cock. Okay, decades of liberal stripped away services. Okay, that's copy and paste. Yeah, that's just copy and paste. Medicine for all, making sure everyone can afford a place to call home. Owning a home has become an impossible dream for too many Canadians, and finding a decent place to rent is getting harder every day. Trudeau's housing crisis is out of hand, and Canadians need real action now. Our plan would be to build over 500,000 units of affordable housing, give immediate relief to renters who need it, and stop big money investors from driving up housing costs. 100% cool on the big money investors thing. I love the idea of making available affordable housing. I would even go as far as to say we should be building some free housing. And rent relief is absolutely important. I firmly believe, though, that the things that we need to be tackling right now are vacant spaces. Those big money investors and companies that do, massive landlord companies like Main Street or Boardwalk have huge amounts of chunks of this city that I live in that are just empty because it's better for them financially to leave it empty than to like rent it to a poor person or a person who doesn't look quite right. That's fucking problematic, and that needs to stop. That needs to change 110%. So fuck that. These are things that we have to care about, and I'm not surprised that I don't see anything about that in there. We have businesses that are empty, like giant fucking skyscrapers. We keep building new not skyscrapers, but big ass towers. We have a bunch of big ass towers that are like half empty or 3/4 empty, and we have people living on the street, and that is fucking criminal. Affordable post-secondary education for everyone. I don't think I need to read the details there. I'm just 100% down. We'll start with forgiving up to $20,000 in student debt, ending interest charges on student loans, and permanently doubling non-repayable Canada student grants. That's all fucking rad. I would personally be super on board with getting rid of as much, if not all, student debt. And people go, oh, but Jim, you had to pay your student loans back. Why would you want someone? Because I fucking had to pay my student loans back. It sucked. I made it through. I was lucky enough to be, to go to school in a environment that would allow me to make enough money that I could pay them back. But it was still a fucking hard slug. And if I could do anything to prevent the next generation of people to not be bound up in that huge front loading of debt that comes from your youth, yeah, fuck yeah. Don't even worry about it. I will actually, because of the fact that things are different in the world now, I will increase my taxes to not have student debt. I would totally do that because I'm in a position where I'm lucky enough to be able to do that. Affordable quality cell phone service and high-speed broadband for all. Now that sounds terrible. Like and honestly, I laugh. There is validity to this. There's absolutely validity. I like this. Highest. We have the highest telecom, well, not the highest, but paying some of the highest telecom prices in the world. It's time to give Canadians a break, and that starts with declaring high-speed internet an essential service, introducing price caps, and abolishing data caps. All of that is totally valid. And when they say essential service, one of the things that, like, I know that they actually repatriated a section of radio in Canada for the purposes of free wireless access to the internet for Wi-Fi. I believe that's been sort of chewed up by TELUS and Shaw in their, like, TELUS Go and Shaw. I don't even know what their fucking programs are called. But they're not awesome. I know this because I had a wireless mic. And my wireless mic was on a length of frequency that got repatriated. So if I turn on my wireless mic, I am technically in violation of the laws. Fortunately, I don't think the thing works anymore because it's had a lot of beer spilled on it over the years. But I just think I thought it was a cool thing. So yeah, I do actually like the idea of bringing in service caps, abolishing data caps, and declaring that it's an essential service. I don't know why at this point in this world, how is internet access not an essential service? And better services all Canadians can rely on, so public health care, stand up to privatization, restore door-to-door mail, and more. Those are all cool. I'm less focused on these things. The economy is actually an interesting one, and I hope that, path to the clean jobs future that we need. I actually emailed Jagmeet Singh and Rachel Notley about this, and I was like, I can't speak to the specifics, not because of I work for a company that was directly implicated in the conversation, and I was like, this is a thing that we should be doing. Okay, I work for a Crown Corporation, which is a company that's owned by a government. I'm not going to tell you which one. Fuck your face. But I work for a Crown company owned by the government. Government wants to sell it. And I was like, hey, why fucking sell it? You own this. It's a cash cow. Milk the cow. Use that money. We have this temporary need to rely on things like oil and gas. But why don't we use the money from this thing that you own to invest in alternative energy, to invest in alternative lubricants and greases, to invest in retraining and education for people who are in those fields? And building up industries that currently don't exist in places like Alberta or Ontario or Newfoundland that rely heavily on oil and gas or fishing or the lumber in BC. Like, we have a lot of segments of our economy that are relying on things that we shouldn't be because they're not sustainable and they're not good for the world. Let's be leaders. Of course, I don't imagine he read that email. I know Rachel Notley did. Because we chatted back and forth about it. But Rachel Notley's an Alberta politician, zero control over that. But I was just like, maybe you could tell Jagmeet. Maybe if you guys are ever like hanging out or whatever. Yeah, like the whole clean jobs thing, like it's a no-brainer. We have to do this shit if we want to even remotely survive like the next, I don't know, million years or couple weeks. Like, I'm fucking tired of having a sky you can chew. I hope you guys are too. Anyways, I think I've covered enough. Oh wait, let's look at the reconciliation in action, because Trudeau talks a lot about reconciliation, but he does sweet fuck all. Fighting reconciliation in the courts isn't really committing to reconciliation, except for when you say that you are committing to stopping reconciliation. So let's see what the NDP have to say here, because this is important to me. I have a lot of people in my universe who are Indigenous and who are very, very much affected by what Canada did to them, and in the generations, my peeps generally are younger than would have been in the residential school system, and I don't know of any of my peeps who would have been part of like the 60s scoop or the birth alert system or anything like that. I could be very well wrong, but I don't think so. But more importantly, all of the Indigenous people here's lives have been shaped by that, and so to me it's an important thing. Indigenous people have lived with the impact and legacy of colonialism for decades. Their resilience in the face. Okay, yes, resilience in the face of genocide. This is talking points. Successive governments have denied their stuff. Okay, so New Democrats are committed to undertaking the important work of reconciliation in good faith and in true and equal partnership with Indigenous communities across the country. We believe that the Crown's relationship to Indigenous peoples must be based on acknowledgement of our country's colonial history of genocide and stolen lands, and include legally binding commitments to fair and equitable redress going forward. I like all that. Our commitments. So upholding Indigenous rights and advancing self-determination. New Democratic government will fully implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 94 calls to action. That's fucking awesome. If regular viewers will remember that we went over all 94 calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report, and it was both fascinating and alarming. I think the thing that was alarming for me was seeing them and going, well, that makes sense. We're not doing that. We're nowhere near doing that. Like, we're finally admitting that this happened. So that's, on a national stage. We've been admitting it within the country for a while, but owning up to it internationally is an important step. Investing in children and ending funding discrimination. That's an important one. NDP are ready to address systemic discrimination against Indigenous children with support and resource Indigenous jurisdiction over children welfare systems, and fully implementing Jordan's Principle and the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal orders. I'm not sure what Jordan's Principle is. Let's do a Google, because I'm not familiar with that. I think I've read it a few times, and I probably will know it as soon as I see it. So this is the Government of Canada's web page. About Jordan's Principle. Jordan's Principle makes sure all First Nations children living in Canada can access the products, services, and supports they need when they need them. Funding can help with a wide range of health, social, and educational needs, including the unique needs that First Nations, Two-Spirit, and LGBTQIA children and youth and those with disabilities may have. Jordan's Principle is named in memory of Jordan River Anderson. He was a young boy from Norway House Cree Nation in Manitoba. I do believe I've read about him before, but so it basically, ensuring that access to services isn't, just for honkies. I think, I clicked on a thing and it opened another thing and that got confusing. Yes, that's where okay. So yes, supporting and resource Indigenous jurisdiction over child welfare systems. That's an important one, and we are starting to see more and more of that. I believe one of the more recent mass graves that we found, and yes, Lauren Southern, they're fucking mass graves. A few days later, Trudeau was out shaking hands with the chief of that band, and it was over. It actually wasn't a cheap publicity stunt. I guess they've been working together on this for quite some time, but I think it was the first fully Indigenous controlled child welfare system in Canada. I could be wrong about that. I may be 100% wrong about that, so don't quote me on that. But it was like a big deal in the world of Indigenous managed child welfare. Safe quality housing for all. First Nations, Métis, Inuit families. Liberal government has failed to help people leaving communities with long waiting lists for housing and overcrowded, dilapidated homes. It's time to end the housing crisis for good with safe and affordable housing in every Indigenous community through a fully funded Indigenous national housing strategy. I know this goes without saying. When I was going over the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, a friend of mine was on, and this friend of mine actually works for a, it's not a nation. They are, I believe, Inuit, but they are in Nunavut, I believe, or the Northwest Territories, one or the other, but they are not a nation. And so a lot of the things that is sort of, the word nation is used throughout the document, and actually doesn't apply to them legally, because they've gone to court over it and said, like, hey, can we have all the things that you're promising? And they're like, well, you're not a nation, you're a group, or whatever terminology they have. So I hope that this is going to be across the board. It's not about nations, it's about people. Closing the education gap. One of the great lies of white society is that the gosh darn native indigenous get free education. No, they fucking don't. New Democrats will ensure that every child is provided a safe place to learn and an opportunity to succeed by implementing Shannon's dream of equitable access to education, expanding financial assistance for post-secondary education, and creating Indigenous history education programs for all Canadians. So we have this view of them getting free access to education. It's not the case. Some nations will have money that they use or that they generate typically from like oil and gas rights or mining rights or what have you, and they will make some of that money available to members of the nation who want to go for post-secondary education to cover costs, and that is fantastic. But that's a capitalism thing. That's not a government thing. And frankly, we can't bridge this gap without making sure that people who are Indigenous have the same access that you or I would have as honkies. The best example I can think of, my homeboy Carlin, who was one of the members of the Chiefs and Council for Tsuut'ina. I've told the story a million times, and I probably tell it wrong every time, but it's roughly, he was going to school on the res in Tsuut'ina, and when he was in, I think, junior high, they were talking about, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he basically said, I want to be an addictions counselor. And his teacher pulled him aside and was like, I'm with you. You'll be great at that. But you can't go to school here if you're going to do that. You need to live in Gleason, which is the nearest actual town, or Strathmore, one or the other. Yeah, Gleason is the name of the reserve city, if I understand correctly. Strathmore is the nearby town. And Strathmore had an education program that was for honkies, so you could go to university with a education from the Strathmore High School. So that's what Carlin did. He lived in a billeting kind of environment. Again, if I understand it correctly, but he went to school away from his family so that he could get a decent enough education to go to university. And now he's on their Chiefs and Council, and that's fantastic. If anyone told me that there'd be a kid that was like living in my city that couldn't get no matter what he did or she did in public education, just would not get an education good enough to go to university, I would be fucking blowing up buildings. Well, we should be doing the same. Not literally. Don't blow up buildings. We should be just as angry when Indigenous people don't have that access. Fostering thriving and resilient communities with clean water and strong public services. Far too many Indigenous communities across the country are still waiting for clean drinking water, which Trudeau told us he was going to fix. He did not. Basic emergency services, secure public transportation, or help with environmental initiatives, sometimes with tragic consequences. Trudeau has broken his promise to end boil water advisories by 2021. But we're ready to step up and fully fund the services and infrastructure that Indigenous communities need to thrive. We'll make investments in Indigenous communities to lift drinking water advisories, improve public transportation, and increase the use of renewable energy. That's all good. And someone's got to fucking do it. Literally, like, a friend of mine and I often talk about, like, if I win the lottery, this is her words, I'm not taking credit because this was her idea and I think it's brilliant. She's like, if I win, there was a big $70 million lottery. She's like, if I win $70 million, I'm going to invest in all of the stuff that you need to make clean water, and then I'm going to call up, the people we know and be like, where in Alberta do I deliver this? Free of charge, just hand it over. I don't need the fucking tax receipt. I don't need anything. Just how do I purify your water so that you can drink it? And if it's not in Alberta, where's the place that needs it most? The fact that this is the, normal people have conversations about winning the lottery, and they're like, I want to buy a house for me and my mom and my dad, and that stupid jerk sister of mine. I'll buy her a house, but it's not a good house, and use the rest of the money to. We always have these fucking plans, and now we're old progressives, and we're like, fuck, I just want to make so my friends can drink water and not die. We live in a first world country. This is absolute bullshit. And the fact that this has not been addressed is just evidence that it's not important to people like Trudeau. And not important, it's even less important to people like O'Toole and all of those fucking pricks. So something's got to change. Nurturing healthy communities. You know what? I think I've hit the wall. Clearly, if I was to sum this up, I will say this. As a progressive, I love the idea of an NDP government, not because it's the best possible government out there. It isn't. Not because they will make the most amount of, or a ridiculous amount of change, because I don't think they will. But they will do more than any of the other parties on the docket. I hold my breath on the Green Party because, as was pointed out, there is a new leader in town, and I am interested to know what Enemy has in store for her party, assuming they let her run it. But my experience with the Greens in Canada has not been a positive one, because it's just been blue conservative with environmental talk. I don't find them all that socially progressive. Now that I'm seeing a woman of color as the leader of the party and they're attacking her, that's cool. That's gonna work out well. I will give them credit. They have had female leadership in the past, and that's awesome. But at least today, my eyes are on the NDP as the party federally that has the potential to do the least amount of harm and the most amount of good, even if the most amount of good is not a whole lot. But at least they're talking about it. And you know what? That's not fair, because Trudeau talked a lot about doing good. He just didn't do the things. He talked about them. I get the feeling from Jagmeet Singh like maybe some of them will get done. So I don't hold out hope for that, because politicians are liars. But a boy can dream. A boy can dream. I'm gonna show one thing, and then I'm gonna call it a night. But I saw this earlier. My Bender, who friend of the show, sent me a link via TikTok. I couldn't find the link in a reasonable fashion, and I'd have to show it via Facebook, and I don't want to do that because there's invariably someone's gonna message me and be like, your HIV test is back or something, and it'll be just terrible, bad. So we're not gonna do that. But wrong one actually. We want to go to the big vid watch screen. What this is, we're gonna giggle as payment for all of the time that I have spent talking about politics and talking about strikes and strike busting people and the horrors that is. We're gonna watch. You have to hear me out on this. We're gonna watch Ben Shapiro. But we're going to watch him, and I don't care what we watch. This one, we'll watch the Still Stranded thing. But we're going to watch it at half speed. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard about this or not. If you watch Ben Shapiro at half speed, he sounds like a drunken frat boy trying to get laid and trying to explain politics to people and stuff. So this is just charming as fuck. So we're going to go playback speed, 50%. and we're gonna play from here. And I have not pre-screened this, but I bet it'll be awesome. We'll only watch a little bit, and then I'm gonna finally eat dinner. It's like 9 o'clock at night.
This is really about right now. Why is Joe Biden doing this right now? Why
Right
is Anthony
now.
Fauci upping the game right now? And the answer is because this failure in Afghanistan is truly horrifying. So, Adam Schiff, you never expect to hear a true
You never experience. You never. I fucking love this. Like I love this.
thing out of Adam Schiff, who again has a pup tent. It is placed right outside of the MSNBC green room. He spent 4 years lying about how there is going to be inevitable evidence that Donald Trump was a Russian cat's paw.
Hey, no hope for the lost. I'm assuming. Well, it's. I can't tell because it's a little tiny icon. I'm assuming it's Nate, but either way, if it's Nate, Ray, or somebody I don't know, glad you're here. Let's continue watching some drunk people.
Right, you remember this? Okay,
Remember?
but Adam Schiff, who can always be counted on to back whatever is the Democratic talking point of the moment, he did not when it came to Afghanistan yesterday. It was very unfortunate for the Biden administration. According to The Hill, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff said it was very unlikely
Very
the U.S. will
unlikely.
complete its evacuation of Afghanistan by the August 31st deadline. He said, quote, "I think it's possible, but I think it's very unlikely given the number of Americans who still need to be evacuated."
So all I can say, I will stop it there, and we'll call it a night. But all I can say is this: that absolutely just makes me feel like Ben Shapiro has like an arm around me, and he's talking way too close, and he's spit talking, and he's like, Adam Schiff, you never sit, never. I fucking love it. I honestly, I would have thought that just playing Ben Shapiro at half speed would just sound like a normal conversation. This is even better. So, all right, I am going to call it a night. If I still got anyone watching, I know I Am Canadian is gone. I see Buvit, whatever that pronunciation is. Hopefully you're a real person and not a bot. Either way, if you're a bot, thanks for watching, bot. If you're a real person, thanks for watching, real person. I prefer real people, even though I'm not a real boy. Anyways, yeah, so I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to probably get some food and figure out what to do with the rest of my evening, and it probably will involve a whole lot of not wearing pants and making the farts. So thanks for watching. I hope it was entertaining. I hope it was decent, educational, fun stuff. Either way,